Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on this recorded presentation. Greater Nevada is finding a growing need for financial education from our community members, and that is why each month we showcase a financial topic that we hope will help you on your financial well-being journey. After this webinar, you can expect to receive some information, including some free materials and tools to help you continue on this financial well-being journey. You can also view this webinar again and others on our GNCU YouTube channel. As we get started, just to go over a few housekeeping items, during this presentation, we do offer a few question and answer breaks. And then for now, we do ask that you just place your cameras in the off status and place your mics on mute until these Q&A sections. But during those times, we welcome you, if you are so brave, to welcome yourself off of mute or even turn on your camera. We're happy to see you. If you want a more alternative or anonymous option, we also take questions emailed to us at gncufinancialacceleration@gncu.net. You will see joining me in the chat. I have a coworker and friend that will be helping me. This is my Community Impact Manager here at Greater Nevada Credit Union, Michelle Hale. And Michelle Hale will be in the chat helping you answer those questions. If you type one in, she will be more than happy to pause and ask that question for you. So please feel free to utilize that chat option. All right, if this is your first webinar, thank you so much for joining. We thank you. My name is Saray. I'm the Financial Education Specialist here at Greater Nevada Credit Union, and I am happy to be your presenter today on taking control of credit card debt. This is actually one of my favorite topics to talk about. Just to share a little bit about myself, if this is your first time, I am a native Nevadan. I do love the outdoors here in Nevada. If I'm not outside, I also love the cozy indoors, and I will be inside probably with my cat and my senior dog. I started my career here in 2015 with Greater Nevada studying to be an educator, and now I'm a proud financial educator and coach for our community. My passion is to motivate, educate, and empower people through personal finance. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into taking control of credit card debt. So on the screen here, as I mentioned before, we want to know more about you. You guys are here learning with us. We also learn from you. If you scan your this QR code with the camera on your phone, it'll bring up a learning survey that will tell us more about what you want to learn. These webinar topics are actually based on what the community member tells us in this learning survey. So if you want us to cover more of something next year, here is your chance. All right, so to dive in today, a few topics we're going to be going over, some five main points. How credit card debt kind of starts. We're talking about, also reflecting at our behaviors. Okay, we're going to talk about 4 tips to manage debt. Okay, and this is credit card debt or any debt in life. Debt repayment strategies, some actual tactile strategies you can work on yourself today. You don't have to hire anybody to do these strategies. Some goal setting tips along with debt repayment and paying off our credit card is going to be some goal setting. So with that, I want to give you some tips on how to maybe do that more successfully. And then, like I said, I'll be giving you some tools and resources at the end of that. So look for an email from me of lots of different things to help you. Calculators, articles, videos, anything you can imagine. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So with that, today's topic is taking control of credit card debt. And on the screen, there's just a few statistics of the reality of debt. Okay, 77% of Americans claim that they are in debt. Americans reached the $1 trillion mark in credit card debt. And all of this is just to say that you are not alone. Okay, so in this journey, if this is one of your goals and you have accumulated credit card debt, you're not alone. Okay, so I hope that brings you some comfort in going, many of us conquer this goal. So with that, I do just want to pause and give you the reminder that today's talk is not to shame us about the debt that we've accrued. Okay, we are reflecting on our past behaviors and maybe patterns and trying to be better with those. But I also want to remind us that a lot of the time, I am very thankful for my creditors and debt that I've had because that was an emergency that I had. It gave me an opportunity in that moment. So also looking at the positives of being able to have this debt of I had an emergency and I was grateful enough to be able to have a credit card to put it on and not have to get a payday loan or something like that. So remember, in this process, give yourself some grace, okay? So I'm just going to start with that. So with that last slide, we talk about or maybe think, why is national debt increasing? Also thinking about why has my debt increased? Okay, this also comes into our patterns. So is our debt increasing to convenience or maybe need? And when I talk about convenience, it may be getting an item sooner, but this also may just be the plain availability of getting a credit card more available, right? Having them, we're getting so many credit card offers and things like that in the mail. Is that contributing to the higher debt? Okay. Or a need, like I had mentioned, was it something that I truly needed? Was it an emergency? Am I using my credit card for daily expenses that I'm not paying for with my debit card or cash? Okay. So again, with that in mind, just kind of weighing the options of having a credit card. If we've accumulated debt, it often feels like our credit card was a bad option. But remember, there are positives of having a credit card for when you need them. So it's access to those emergency funds. We have the opportunity to build our credit even more, and we're going to talk about that later on of as we pay down debt, how to also maintain or even build our credit over time. And if you're using it wisely, maybe your credit card gives you rewards. I see lots of people, getting lots of benefits from their credit card. So some benefits there. Some negatives and maybe why we're here. Okay, hopefully we're not paying lots of fees or annual fees, but with those fees is interest. Okay, we're paying lots and lots of interest to borrow money. And we're going to talk about hopefully building up, a savings account to where we don't have to borrow more. It doesn't feel like money, so it feels easier to spend. Okay. And it can be on the positive side of opportunity to build credit. If we don't use it wisely, it can potentially damage our credit. Okay. Risk of theft. Now, I want to pause and talk about this. Yeah, you do. It's an additional card in your wallet. If your wallet were, goodness forbid, to go missing, get lost, get stolen, something like that, it is an additional card. But there's a lot of benefits to using your credit card over maybe a debit card. If theft happened, it's not coming from the debit card or your actual cash money. Okay, so a benefit there could be, you could look at it half empty, half full. All right, I'm going to go ahead. I want to pause and talk about common types of debt. Okay, we're talking about credit cards today, and credit cards often feel, I hear this from a lot of people, they feel like a never-ending loop that you can't get out of. Have you ever wondered why? Okay, I'm going to tell you something that it's not just you feeling like that. This is how a credit card is actually set up. So we have two common types of debt. One is installment credit over here on the left. So think of installment credit as you have a set amount at the top and you pay it all the way down to zero until it's gone. An example of this would be a car loan. Okay, I get approved for a car loan and I make payments until my car is paid off. All right. Then we have revolving credit. This is where money can be borrowed as needed. So I can use it and pay it back and use it and pay it back and use it and pay it back, and it's always there. It is a revolving cycle. So it does feel like a loop, because it is meant to be like that. But we're going to talk about maybe some benefits of how to pay that down, getting it to not feel like that endless loop, or even switching it to an installment type credit with a debt consolidation loan. All right, we are on our first question break. We have already made it through kind of how credit card debt starts. We're thinking about our patterns. Now we're going to get into tips, okay? And we're going to get into 4 tips to manage debt. So I do see a question in the chat here. How can I dispute debt collection information on my credit card? I think we'll get to that a little bit later, but just so I remember to answer your question, this is a great common question of how you can dispute it. If you do see, let's say, an unrecognized transaction on your credit card, transactions on your credit report is something else, but if it's on your credit card transaction, immediately I would say reach out to that credit card company, and let them know that you don't recognize that and it could be potential fraudulent activity. They can start a dispute, right? And they're going to be the experts in ensuring this dispute process gets handled with you. So you may have to, work with them through that process. But also accumulated in there, they're going to take care of the interest, typically in something like that on a fraudulent transaction. So I hope that answered that question. I do see another one coming in. And it says, I'm trying to pay more than the minimum payment, but it seems like I never make a dent. Why is this? So I definitely think, this is the common feeling of being in that revolving credit. And first thing I'm always going to recommend is that we're paying more than the minimum payment if we can. Often when you're paying the minimum payment, the interest accruing is taking a lot of that minimum payment. So you're not paying on that principal balance, as we call it. If you can put more down than the minimum payment, you're going to pay off that interest, and then you're going to start paying on the principal more. So that would be my first recommendation, is pay more than that minimum. Now, not to dismiss, a lot of people may feel, well, I can't feel as though I can pay more. We are going to go through steps today of building a spending plan, how to maybe increase income, reduce our expenses, flex our budget or spending plan to see if we can put more on that minimum payment. Okay, I hope that helps. We're going to go more in detail. All right, so I want to go over some tips for credit building and maintaining. So during this process, it's very important. We want to also build our credit, or maintain our credit. I often hear feedback that with debt consolidation companies that you hire, maybe your credit isn't building. But if you're doing it yourself, here's some tips to think of to hopefully increase your credit over time. Okay, so on the screen is actually how your credit score is weighed. Okay, very first over here, and the biggest contributor to your credit score is your payment history. Are you paying on time? Are you paying just the minimum payment back? Okay, so always try to pay on time, always try to pay more than the minimum. I talk about building your credit as being a good friend. Okay, and so if you're going to be a good friend to your creditor, you're going to want to pay them on time and try to pay them back sooner, right? All right, next factor is how much you owe. So first step is we got to stop spending. We cannot increase that amount of debt. And what they want to actually, by they, I say typically creditors, are recommending that you keep your utilization under 30%. So let's break that down. If you have a credit card for $1,000, and they're recommending that you don't utilize more than 30%, your debt to income ratio, you may hear this call, okay? It's how much debt we can pay compared to what we have. So they want to keep that under 30%. If your credit card's $1,000, you want to not have more than $300 roll over into each month, okay? They would like to see less than that for the amount owed. Your length of history is how long have you been friends? How long have you had this credit card? Think of that as your longest relationships and your longest friendships. And actually, when it comes to building your credit, you may be surprised, but I usually recommend that you don't close credit accounts, especially if they're your longest references. If you close that account, they're no longer telling you about the great friendship history that you had worked so hard to build up on time payments, paying more than the minimum, etc. Okay, next is new credit, 7% of new credit. We want to limit inquiries. Are you a good friend if you're always asking to borrow money? Okay, so try to limit your inquiries. And the next one is types of credit. Okay, we want to diversify our credit and prove our trustworthiness. And what I mean by that is having both, practicing both that installment and that revolving credit. I have a great story. I had a friend who had multiple credit cards. She was very good at maintaining them, had a great credit score. And this is when we were younger. She was looking at going to get a car loan. And because of her good revolving credit history on her credit card, she thought that she would have no problem getting a car loan. She went to go apply for this car loan, and they said, sorry, actually, we can't approve you because you haven't built installment credit. You only have revolving credit. So important once you're feeling comfortable to diversify as you go. Okay, so that's just a little bit about your credit score. So I want to pause here. So to summarize all of this, we are starting our debt repayment journey today, okay? And the step number one to paying off our debt is to not accrue more debt. So again, not shaming us on the debt that we've accrued. I'm very grateful that I've had those opportunities, but I'm trying to be better. So I'm going to recommend that you're always cautious when using your credit card going forward. And you're thinking three main things when you're using the credit card. Why am I purchasing this item? What is the item? Kind of why do I need it? Okay. And when will it be paid off by? So let's break this down. Why am I purchasing this item? Is it needed? Is it wanted? Is it just a convenience of getting it sooner? Or is this the need of paying off or using it for a daily expense? Excuse me. So really looking at your pattern. Is it a want or a need? Okay, what is the item? Do you have this item already? Could you go without the item? What will be the additional monthly payment for this item if you put it on your credit card? I love thinking about this before I use my credit card. It holds me accountable. I'll use myself as an example. I moved into a new apartment and I needed a couch desperately. And so I paid a little bit in cash and then I put a little bit on my credit card. And I knew exactly that if I were to put this couch on my credit card, I would be paying X amount monthly for 4 months and it would be paid off. Okay. So what is that item? Do you even need it? And what will be the payment if you add it on your credit card? Okay. And just as I said, I knew I was going to pay my couch off in those X amount of months. Put an end date to it and really be realistic with yourself on how long it's going to take that item to be paid off. Also, think about, is the item going to be used? How long is it going to be used for? Is it worth accruing and adding to your debt for? Okay. So this is us trying to get into our better patterns and pay off our debt. Okay. So I have another question break. We're about to start diving into actual steps. A lot of this was our reflecting and getting better ideas to move forward. Now we're going to start moving into action plans with some tips and some actual strategies. But Michelle, before I move on, I just
Yeah,
saw a
we
question pop
well,
up.
and
But
we
go
had a
ahead, please,
question
Michelle.
also from the email. So
Okay.
the question is, I am trying to pay more than the minimum payment, but it seems I never make a dent. Why is this?
Absolutely. So yeah, kind of feeling just as this last person, not feeling as though we're making a dent. That minimum payment, I really recommend doing more than that minimum payment. And if you're feeling as though you can't afford more than the minimum payment, we're going to talk about that and these 4 tips coming on this next slide of maybe some ideas to think of how can I get more than that minimum payment. Okay, so I hope that helps. And then I do see one in the chat says, if you open up a credit card account and rarely use it, or maybe you never use it at all, maybe it's just a couple of transactions and you owe nothing, do those cards eventually close after a certain time if they're not active? And I assume this impacts our credit score. Great question. Let's go back and let's talk about this. This is one of my favorite questions I get is, hey, well, I have this credit card, but I don't really use it that often. Why did it close? This is big on your history. If remember, your creditors are like friendships. Am I being a good friend to you if I don't talk to you very often? Are you still doing okay? Do you still make on-time monthly payments? So think of that. If you're not using that, that creditor is not hearing from you. Is it a friendship? Are you still okay? So, yeah, I'm not surprised if you are not using that credit card and you may have creditors close that relationship over time if you're not working to build that relationship. Okay, so I hope that helps you. It can impact your credit score. Remember, closing a credit line can impact your credit score, especially if that was a long time reference. So I really recommend, just as you said, use it for a couple transactions, even if you're paying those off over time, monthly, you're still communicating. There's still something to report there that you have used it and you have paid it off on time and in full. That's building positive payment history. So take a look at that over time too. I hope that answered that question, but great question. That's one of my favorite ones. So hope that helps. Now we can go. You're very welcome. Absolutely. Thank you for utilizing the chat, you guys. Let's go ahead and start getting into tips, okay, to manage debt. So I'm going to give you 4 tips today. Number one, if we're looking at paying off debt, we need to have a plan for paying off debt. So I really recommend creating your spending plan, going over your budget again. I do have a webinar on that. That is on our GNCU YouTube channel that you can walk through the steps to do that. But basically what we're looking at is, are you positive? Are you negative? Can we flex things to get more for that payment or minimum payment? Okay. So the next one is consider increasing your income. Okay, now I know that's going to sound harder, but let's break this down a little bit. So if you have the option to work overtime, maybe that's a good option for debt repayment, okay? And then, in adding to that spending plan, can you add additional work? I have a lot of people utilizing new job options that are more flexible, like DoorDash or, kind of those delivery services that you can do it when you want to do it. My personal favorite way, I love to consolidate and sell off old items. If I am not using it or something like that, um, get rid of it. And eBay was a big, advocate of doing online selling, but now we have so many online selling platforms. Yeah, somebody mentioned Etsy, Poshmark, I've heard of, Let It Go. There's all these options to sell off old items, Facebook Marketplace, okay? And I was just talking to somebody and I said, $20 made on Facebook Marketplace is an hour or however long that you don't have to work at your job already. That's additional income. Okay, so be creative at increasing your income. And of course, with that is reducing our debt. Number one, stop creating debt. Think of those three questions. Why am I using this? What is it? How long is it going to take me to pay it off? Try not to increase your debt as we're paying it off. But with that, we're looking at our needs and wants. Can we cut things? Can we flex? Can we purchase non-name brand? Can we minimize eating out and cook at home more? Lots of different options of trying to reduce. I would say with any purchase that I'm making while on debt repayment, journey, I'm thinking, is this money that I want to spend, or is this money that could go towards debt repayment? Okay. But just really setting yourself in that mindset. Okay. And it takes practice, takes practice. Goal setting, huge final step. If we don't make goals and hold ourselves accountable and actually create an action plan, it is going to feel like we're in that never-ending loop and can't get out. If what hasn't been working for us in the past, we should try to make adjustments. And that's a huge part of this, is looking back at my last month and going, how did I do? Even if I didn't do perfect, even if I only paid my minimum payment, pick yourself up and go, I at least paid my credit card on time. That's a positive behavior that I can continue. And I will be better next month because I will XYZ. Okay. So always self-reflecting is going to be a huge part of this. Give yourself grace every single month in this revolving cycle that it feels like. Okay, so just to save a little bit of time, I did not see any questions come through the chat. So I want to give you some actual debt repayment strategies. Okay, and I think maybe some questions will come along with that. So these strategies that I'm about to give you are strategies that you can do on your own, but this is also something that people pay debt consolidations companies to do for them. I'm not an advocate of paying more fees if you feel comfortable doing this yourself. So the first one, kind of in the green here, are strategies you can do on your own. And then in the orange here, maybe some additional help is needed, okay? So we can pay principal payments, we can consider some consolidation options, and we can make a recovery plan. So let's go over those. We're going to talk about making additional principal payments, paying more than the minimum. And I think about this and I go, well, how do I even start? I'm going to give you two methods. They're called typically in this finance world, or I will refer to them as the snowball and avalanche method. For consolidation options, we're going to talk about an actual consolidation loan, and we're going to talk about those credit card offers you may get in the mail, those 0% for X amount of time, and maybe why you should rethink other options over those. I don't know if it's the best option for everybody. It could be for you, but definitely weigh your option, okay? Recovery plan. So this is when we're actually in collections, okay, and we're managing our collections, and we're building our credit. So some steps of, being that good friend, communicating, things like that. And you may need additional help, maybe not with your credit cards, but if on your debt repayment journey, if you're facing eviction, foreclosure, seizure of goods, bankruptcy, things like that, you may need additional help with those. But these other ones, there's three major ones that we can be doing on our own. So with that, let's go ahead and dive in and start off with those principal payments. So what I mean by that is, yes, we're just paying more on principal. We're paying more than the minimum to try to increase how much debt is paid off. Okay. The first one is called the avalanche method. And this is, I will say, probably mathematically what will save you the most money. I will tell you why I have personal success with the snowball method. Okay. So neither are incorrect. You are going to be the best decider of which one's going to be best for you. And maybe you try both. Okay. So, avalanche method is when you are picking and paying off the debt with the highest interest rate. So, if you have multiple credit cards, this is when you're going to pay your, never not pay your payments. You're going to pay at least your minimum on your other credit cards, but we're really focusing on doubling down, so to say, on the credit card with the highest interest rate. Okay. So we would be trying to put our additional payments that we made on Facebook Marketplace or by working overtime on that highest credit card to pay that interest off, in turn, hopefully saving us the most money. Okay. I personally love the snowball method, and this is when you're paying the credit card off with your lowest balance due. Okay, so if you have multiple credit cards, they have balances due, still paying on your credit cards, but you're putting additional on the lowest balance. And what this does for me is I eventually can see that pay down and probably be the first one to pay off. And that gives me a little bit of a small victory to celebrate that this is possible. I can do debt repayment. And then maybe after I pay off my smallest balance, maybe I jump to the avalanche method and try that one, to get a little bit of encouragement that debt repayment is possible. That is just a reason that I like the snowball method is I like to celebrate those small wins. Seems to keep me motivated. Okay, and with that, I do want to pause and just say that I said in the beginning of this that this is not to shame us for the debt that we've had. Um, I think debt is a part of life. Okay. There are often times that we need to borrow money. That is just part of life. And having to know how to get out of debt and have these debt repayment strategies is also a part of life. Okay. So, like I said in the very beginning, we're not in this alone. I think borrowing money and paying it off is a normal part of life. And we are just getting better at knowing how to do that, right? Practicing. I'm always practicing. Okay, so now we're going into that second option of let's weigh some debt consolidation loan options. This is when you're placing multiple, let's say you have multiple credit cards. If you were approved for a consolidation loan, they're typically as a personal or unsecured loan. Okay, so if you're shopping on a website or something like that, they're probably going to be under the personal or unsecured loan rate. But let's say you get approved for that and you can pay basically what you would be doing is taking those multiple credit cards into one loan payment. Those credit cards would be paid off, and you're just paying that one loan payment now under this personal or unsecured loan interest rate, which is typically less than a credit card most of the time. That's typically why it's a better option. Another good option, just like we talked in the beginning, credit cards feel like a revolving cycle because it is a revolving type of credit. When you switch to consolidation loan, you're now actually putting a start and end date to it. You're changing the type of debt that it is. So you'll have a set amount and you'll pay it down to zero. Okay, if you're weighing the option of a debt consolidation loan, the biggest advice that I have is you are now freeing up those lines of credit, and you should practice the self-discipline to not create more debt on those loans. I can't tell you, I've seen a lot of people get into trouble with debt consolidation loans for this reason is they will do consolidation loan. Now all their credit cards are paid off, and what do? They're still paying that consolidation loan, but they rack up debt on their credit cards again. And so they're in a worse situation than they were in the beginning. So if you consider a debt consolidation loan, you should really make sure you have the self-discipline to utilize those credit cards properly from that point on. Okay, so I want to pause and talk about the credit card offers. Okay, we get those 0% interest rate credit card offers. This isn't something that I have on the screen here, but consider, this is when you would be switching your debt to, let's say, that company, whether it's full debt amount or a partial debt amount, and it's 0% interest, let's say for 36 months or 12 months, an offer like that. If you're transferring over that debt and you don't pay it off in those 36 months or those 12 months, it's no, typically in the fine print, just watch out for this. It's no longer 0% interest. It's going to be that interest that they offered, and they'll typically are not charging the interest on the amount that you didn't pay. You paid all of this amount and you had this amount left over. They're not just charging you on the leftover balance, they're going to charge you typically the full interest on the full debt amount that you transferred over, which could be leaving you in a worse situation than you started. So if you're doing one of those options, really consider that you need to make sure that you can pay off that full balance in that amount of time. You're calculating what that monthly payment is and if it's truly feasible for you. Okay. So, just some advice. If you are weighing consolidation options of any kind, I will give you 3 tips down here. Shop your best interest rate. We are paying off debt. We want to pay less fees. Get that best interest rate you can. Okay. Be careful of those 0% offer interest rates, just like as we said, though. Find out your monthly payment amount and see if it's actually reasonable and feasible for you. And we're going to talk about that in our goal setting. And then what's the length of the loan? How long is it going to actually take you to pay off that debt? Okay. And that is often becomes realistic for me, like I said, with that couch of, oh my goodness, it's going to take me 4 months or 6 months or 1 year or however long your goal is. Okay. Whew, let's go ahead and pause there, you guys. We have made it. We've gotten some strategies. We're going to now talk about goal setting. Okay, we've gotten lots of ways we can do this. Let's now start diving in to let's setting goals. So by the time our next paycheck comes, or maybe we're even starting, the month just began. We're starting this on the 6th. So this may be a good time to revisit and put an action plan and set some goals and see if you can make them this month. Okay. Again, to kind of save us on time and maybe have a little bit of time for question and answers at the end. I don't see any questions, so we'll go ahead and move on into goal setting. Okay, so we often talk about these SMART goals, and some of the resources I send you, they are from our partners over at Balance, and they have lots of different resources that I utilize, podcasts, calculators, things like that. And one of these is the SMART goal setting, which you will see probably more than just Balance. But by SMART, this acronym, what we mean is your goals should be specific, they should be measurable, they should be actionable or achievable, realistic, and always try to make them time bound. Okay, so I am giving you an example of this with debt repayment here. If I set a goal, I want to pay $1,000 of debt in 1 year. Let's break this down together and see what that would actually look like. I want my goal to be specific. So I am saying an actual amount of $1,000, and I'm saying in 12 months. But I want to get more specific and go, how much does that $1,000 in 1 year cost? How much is that going to be monthly? Each paycheck, if I get paid, multiple times a month. So break it down. What's the cost per month? I actually broke this down. $85 to $100 per month to pay off $1,000, depending on the interest rate, right? This would be around $45 to $50 per biweekly paycheck if you do that. Okay, so I have some numbers now in front of me of each paycheck, how much it would cost me. I need to see if this is even actionable and achievable. I made my spending plan. That's the first step. Can I afford $40 to $50 on this payment. Maybe I can only afford $25. And so I can stretch out how long it's taking me to pay that debt off. And that's okay, but make sure it's actionable and achievable for you. And maybe you're adjusting your goals just to make sure that you are going to be successful. Okay. Again, kind of along with that, is it realistic to pay $50 per paycheck for me for debt repayment? If it's not in my regular paycheck or spending plan, is it more achievable if I do some increasing income options, if I sell some old items, if I work overtime? Can I save on my grocery bill, save on eating out to make this $50 realistic? How can I make it realistic for me? And I really recommend putting a start date and an end date on it. I want to start this debt repayment plan the first paycheck of March 2024 or of next month or your next paycheck. Okay. Really get yourself encouraged to do this. I feel like if we don't have a start date, we'll keep putting it off. So this helps me really put into action is by putting a start date. Okay. And set an end date. Really be realistic. If we don't have an end date, I wouldn't know how much $1,000 was going to take me in 1 year. Okay, so just an example of some goal setting there, you guys. We are saving up. We've made really, really good time. We will have some good time for question and answers after this, if you so choose to. But I do want to pause here. We're coming to the end of, hopefully this has you feeling as though you've reflected on your patterns and you're ready to change. You've gotten some debt repayment tips and strategies. Hopefully you've thought about the options that you're going to take. You can take multiple options at once. Maybe you're doing, let me go back to that slide. Consolidation options while paying principal payments. Okay. I want to pause here and just go back to this of if you are weighing a consolidation option, let's say you have 3 credit cards and you only get approved for the consolidation option that would pay off 2 of the 3. Remember going back to the avalanche and snowball method. If you're not approved for the full amount of debt, maybe you're paying the highest interest off first to save yourself money. And then maybe that leftover credit card is the smallest balance and you can work on snowballing those payments. Okay. So again, with that, and then hopefully we've gotten you brainstorming to set some goals. Now this is the time that we're leaving you off to continue this financial wellness journey, okay? So again, like I said, you will be getting some tools and resources. One of these is Greater Nevada does offer free financial coaching, and this is no membership needed. This is something that as the credit union believes in financial well-being for all, they offer free financial coaching to all. So there's a phone number there. I'll be sending you the link for that. Debt repayment is absolutely one of those. I'll be sending you some other resources and tools and podcasts and calculators and lots of things you can imagine. Explore those options as you're tackling this debt repayment journey. And like I said, some calculators, some physical things that you can put down to get numbers for your accelerated debt, okay? So the next thing I'm leaving you with is thank you so much for joining us on this financial well-being webinar series. In front of you are our other financial well-being topics. We hope and look forward to seeing you on these in the future. And then once again, I will leave you with that. If you are able to fill out this survey for me and help me learn a little bit about more topics we want to know in 2025. Our 2025 topics are based off of what you tell us on there. So with that, for those that would like to know more, we will be sending out a follow-up email with a survey as well as more information on this topic. And then for more wellness resources or to see this webinar again, visit gncu.org, hover over the resources tab. With that, I will say have a great day. And if you want to stay for questions and answers, I am happy to stay a little bit longer. But with that, we have made it to the end of taking control of credit card debt. So thank you guys so much. Thanks for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one.